Hello ladies and gentlemen, what's up? Pork Shopper here, and today is the start of a 5-part series of me going through all the affinities and looking at the new cards, giving my opinion and thoughts about how useful they will be and what this affinity will offer you. If you want to keep up with all the latest news and guides of version 42, I am doing daily videos on Paragon, so if you want, subscribe and sharing my content around is really appreciated. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of this affinity and what your favourite cards will be. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I will be copying this intro for all the affinity videos I will be doing, so if you have heard it before, skip over to the time on screen, but it explains how attributes with cards work. Secondly, I am using the core.gg website to look at all the cards, link will be down below. I highly recommend to check the site out, as when version 42 drops, all my deck builds will be on that website. You can easily link your Epic account to the website to transfer your decks over. It's my personal favourite deck building website. Now let's get into the cards. First thing to know is that each affinity has a unique trait, which at the start of each affinity I will talk about what that trait is. The way you buy cards is with either gold, the new currency, or attribute points. To summarise this rather quickly, which when version 42 fully releases I will be doing a full in-depth guide on, is that you gain attribute points by spending your gold, 1000 gold for an attribute point. There are 3 attributes: Vitality, which when upgraded gives you health and health regen, Intellect, which gives you mana and mana regen, and Agility, which gives you attack speed and basic armor. Cards need a required amount of attribute points to access. For example, if you need 3 Vitality and 3 Intellect, this will cost you 6000 gold in total. You then use those points for said card. If you remove the card from your current card slot, you can use those points elsewhere. Each attribute has 25 levels in total, so that's 25 points to give. If a card costs 13 Vitality, that means you can't buy another 13 Vitality card because that equals 26, well there's only 25 levels per attribute, but that's only if you have fully leveled up that attribute to 25. Now that's out the way, let's look at this affinity. So in this video we're going to be looking at the knowledge affinity. I did a video previously a few days back looking at the growth affinity if you want to check that out, and of course stick around for the channel for the order, death and chaos affinities, which again will be over the next couple of days. Just like growth, knowledge has a specific trait which is consumables. What consumables do is probably the most simplest trait to understand. So you pretty much purchase consumables and they have a certain amount of usage. For example, the first card here is Rejuvenator, which is a consumable, with Restoration Potion, which gives you health regen and mana regen for 10 seconds and costs 200 gold. So you use this once and then it would be put back into your deck to repurchase again for 200 gold, and you can keep purchasing this over and over and over again as long as you have the required amount of gold to use it. So this card itself is pretty simple, mainly for supports or offlaners to stay healthy mana and health wise. Then we have our first proper card called Advanced Evolution, with the effect to restore 3% max health and 3% max mana per second for 3 seconds after leveling up. This card costs 1 intellect. So it's definitely going to be for those heroes that are going to be leveling up rather quickly. The offlane would be the perfect example there. As an offlaner, you're going to be leveling up a lot more quicker than the safe lane duo, and also you're going to be under threat being poked continuously. So making sure you restore your max health and max mana is going to be something beneficial to you. Again, this could be quite nice for the mid lane if you're going to be against an enemy mid laner that's going to be poking you a lot more than you would like a Morogesh who has a very good early game presence, or maybe a jungler, but again I think this card pretty much is a mainly off-lane card. Then we have Shipyard Scavenger, with lone bonus gold being the effect. You receive an extra bonus gold when killing an enemy hero with no other nearby enemy heroes. This costs 1 agility. So this is a card if you're going to be against a solo enemy. this could be something that could be actually quite beneficial maybe for a carry. If you're going to go super aggressive against an offlaner, being able to use this card to get receive bonus gold is going to be really good. You're probably going to need good coordination with your support player to make this beneficial, to know that you really want to kill that offlaner as many times as possible, be as aggressive as possible, and pick in some really strong early game safe lane duo pair. Then we had Font of Experience, which I definitely think is going to be one hell of a card to have. It has the effect Experience, gain 2.5 experience every 10 seconds and cost a straight up 1000 gold, so you can buy this right at the start of the game because you start the game with 1000 gold. In my eyes, this card is pretty much a perfect card for support, as supports now will be getting less gold and normally don't get as much experience, and you always want to get level 5 as soon as possible as support because that's when you get your big ultimates. So that card I think is going to be really good for supports, to make sure you level up healthy enough so you aren't lacking too far behind like supports always do in Paragon, which is a shame. Except for this, I don't really think you would want this as a mid laner, even an off laner. You're going to be leveling up pretty much safely unless you really have a hero that benefits from leveling it up very quickly, like a Greystone or Zinx, because once they get level 5, they can be extremely strong. If you do choose this card as an off laner, you're not going to have as much sustainability as you would like. Then we have another consumable being Accelerator with the effect Quicken, gain a certain amount of move speed for a very long period of time, here being 120 seconds, and this cost 1500 gold. I mean, this seems really crazy. I mean, we've always suggested having quote-unquote boots in the game where it can increase speed if you actually upgrade it, which everyone's been very iffy of, especially after travel mode. So I'm quite intrigued to see how this is really going to work and what heroes this would benefit most. Maybe if you're a jungler that benefits from extra move speed, or if you're a type of hero that doesn't have that much mobility and you're getting ganked on a lot, this card could be beneficial there, like say a Morrigus, but it is a set period of time, and like I said, you can buy it, but you don't have to use it until you actually need it. So if an enemy is escaping, you can quickly use this card to catch them up, but again, it's going to be quite unique, and it is quite a bit of gold to waste on a single consumable. I'm just very interested to see how this card turns out. Then we have another consumable being Generator with mana recovery. Restore certain amount of mana per second for 14 seconds. Effect ends when mana is full and costs 1500 gold. This card seems a lot better and probably the best consumable so far. This mostly is going to be for those casters, and it's one of those things that if you can keep spamming your mana over and over again before your mana gets full, because once your mana is full, the effect ends, this card could be exceptionally good. Just before a massive fight's about to happen, you can quickly use this card and make sure you pretty much have infinite mana for a set period of time. A really cool hero that actually could be really efficient with this card would be Zinx. Zinx with the ultimate that enemies deal half the damage they would for mana of Zinx. So if you activate this card, that means you won't be losing mana that quickly, means you can become even extra tanky than before and have a longer duration on it. So that's definitely a card with Zinx and generally mostly casters. Then we have Mana Flow Acolyte, which has the effect Scholar. Increase max mana by 0.2% and power by 0.2% when purchasing intellect. When it means intellect, it means the attribute intellect points, and it does cost 3 intellect to acquire. It also has some power added on. So the first thing I would want to know with this card is when it says when purchasing its intellect, does this mean after you buy the card, every point of intellect you buy after you acquire this card, do you get these bonuses? Or is it just pretty much you can quit this card at any time in the game and it sees how much time you have got intellect? But what it says here is when purchasing intellect. So I presume it means if you're going for a very high intellect build, you want this card very early on to help increase your mana and power. And then we have Supply Sergeant, which has mana and the effect Mana Shout. Restore a certain amount of mana to nearby allies. Has a cooldown and apparently 0 mana cost, which I'm not sure is right, and I'm sure it does actually have a proper mana cost, and costs 3 intellect. In my opinion, this card is definitely 100% for support. I don't see this card having much else used for any other hero really. I mean, if you're support, I always like how in the current game supports pretty much have cards to make sure your allies have health and shield, well, not really much to do with manas. So this is cool if you have more of a caster heavy comp, then you can quickly make sure that if you acquire this card, they can keep restoring their mana to nearby allies. Pretty nice card to have, definitely a support card there. Then we have Soldier of Fortune with some mana regen, and the effect Golden Touch. Destroy target minion and gain 92 bonus gold and 18 experience. It has a cooldown, which is quite decent cooldown and quite expensive mana cost for 4 intellect. So this is going to be a rather interesting card. I mean, it seems like destroy target minion. Now when it says target minion, this doesn't mean raptors or means all prime, it just means a minion, so don't worry about that. But I guess it's one of those cards that if you want to farm quicker and more efficiently, and you would benefit from extra bonus gold and experience, this could be the card for you. The first thought in my head would be that if you are support and you are sort of stuck pushing a lane by yourself because you want the best wave clear, this card would be quite beneficial there, because that means you do get extra bonus gold and experience, which supports always will lack. Or maybe if you're an offlaner, which you have the option to split push heavily in a lane, then destroying target minions, mostly being the siege minions because they're the ones that deal most damage and problems, could be really good there. But I don't see this card having much else use, and definitely is more a mid-ish game card once the first towers have sort of been destroyed and your decks are starting to come online. Then we have another consumable, which is Power Tap, which is a very unique one in my eyes, which the effect Power Up. Permanently increase power by 9.2, costs 4,000 gold. So pretty much if you want to spend 4,000 gold on purely increasing your power, you can just keep buying this card over and over again. So pretty much you acquire the card and you can press it anytime you want to use the consumable and increase your power. So this is very much a card that if you want to be effective, you want to use it a lot. But 4,000 gold is a significant amount. Remember, that's not 4,000 gold going into your attribute points to give you access to more of these high-end cards early on. So something to consider there, and again, it's about increasing your power. I personally feel this is a kind of card that maybe you would want really late game, where you're saying you have all your attributes and all your cards you would really want. You can just keep buying this card over and over again without much worry if you just have the gold to spend and you are significantly ahead of the enemy team. Then we have Astral Leap, which is pretty much Teleblink 2.0, giving you mana regen and a blink, teleport forward 1500 units, cannot be used for 8 seconds after taking damage from an enemy hero, has a higher cooldown and actual mana cost than Teleblink has now, and costs 4 intellect. So this is one of the very few blink cards in the game now. They seem to have got rid of quite a few of them. It's pretty simple, you still teleport the same amount of units forward, but instead of only 5 seconds after taking damage, it's 8 seconds, has a longer cooldown and an actual mana cost now. So basically it's saying that these mobility cards are going to be more expensive and worthwhile cards and will cost a bigger amount. It's nice to see these blink cards back. I always think they were a really unique part of Paragon, so it's nice to see they are back in some form. Then we have Static Trap. This is pretty much what Murdoch's ability was until we got his rework. So this gives him mana regen, power, and the effect Immobility Trap. Place a trap that arms after 1.2 seconds and lasts 73 seconds. Reveal and root the first enemy that steps on it for 1.2 seconds. Has a cooldown mana cost, costs 4 intellect and 3 agility, so definitely is quite an expensive card. I would have to see this in game to really see visually how this properly works, if it is visually the same as Murdoch's Static Trap was, or if it has a different effect, it's harder to see, etc. We're going to have to wait and find out for that. But my initial thoughts of this is that it could combo really well with certain abilities or certain heroes. I mean, you can hide this behind fog walls, or say, in the perfect scenario, imagine a Severog, you place a root down to trap someone, and then you quickly go behind them, you ult them all the way into the static trap, and then root them down again for the double root. That would be some incredible plays. I cannot wait to see. It doesn't say here that it has a limit of how many traps you can have on field, and if the cooldown is to be correct to 25 seconds, it means you could probably put a lot of these traps down and get really creative with sort of plays you can do, or corner certain areas of the map off. Imagine Raptors placing 2 traps down right on Raptors could be really effective. So a good zoning tool here if it works with a correct team comp. I'm really interested to see that card. I thought it wouldn't be that interesting, but I can definitely see some possibilities with it. Then we have Wetware Virus, which gives you mana regen, ability armor, and the effect Weaken. Reduce target enemy's attack speed by 18% and basic damage by 18 for 3.1 seconds. This has a cooldown, which is not that bad, and it costs 4 intellect and 3 vitality. I definitely see this as being more of a support card if there's a high value target you want to weaken. But I think this could be a really nice support card where you're a bit at the end of the fight, or maybe even caster because you're just a bit outside the area of the fight. You can quickly pick a target that you think is going to be a real big problem, a Seraph, any carry really in the game. Quickly use this card and it means they can be considerably weaker for a good duration of that fight. So nice card, quite a specific one, but I definitely see it having its uses. Then we have a card called Thaumaturge, which I probably said horribly wrong, but my throat is like dying at this point. It has mana and power and 2 effects. The first is Empowering Mana. Gain power equal to 0.6% max mana, and Overflow. Gain 2.5 max mana whenever you deal damage to an enemy hero, up to 184 max mana. And apparently has a cooldown there, which I don't think is meant to be the case, but is 7 intellect. So pretty much these two effects work with each other. The gain power equal to 0.6% max mana. I believe it's very similar to Infinity Stream or Hydroverser. Can't remember which one it is in the game. I always get confused, where it depends on how much lost mana you have or how much mana you have, depends on the power you have. But in this case, it's max mana, so it doesn't matter how much mana you have left, it's all about the max mana you have. And then Overflow, that effect actually benefits that as well, that you gain extra max mana for dealing damage to enemy heroes. So this seems to be a really nice efficient caster card. If you're going to build in a lot of mana and a lot of damage, this card can really suit well, not just in the mid game, but it definitely could be a latish game card. Then we have Arcane Dancer with some health, some power, and the effect Spell Protection. Reduce ability damage taken by 71% for the next 4.7 seconds. It has not that bad of a cooldown, but quite an expensive mana cost, but costs 7 vitality. So this is like a counter caster card. If the enemy team has a very much strong caster comm, then this card could be really, really good. Of course, in certain scenarios, if you're about to get ulted, or say if you're right in the middle of a Gideon ult, quickly use this card and it could save your life, because that's a lot of percentage of reduced ability damage. Again, the stats may change, but that seems a really, really effective card. So pretty much against any high damage caster, that is probably becoming a really big problem. I mean, a perfect example is Countless. You're in the lane by yourself, enemy Countless comes into your peripheral and you're thinking, shit, she's about to combo the crap out of me and kill me. Quickly activate this card before she gets all her crazy combos off, and it could save your life. Then we have the next card being Echelon Soldier, which gives you health and power with the effect Hide. Enter the shadow plane for as long as you are stationary after 2 seconds. Build up to 24 ability damage per second, up to 245 ability damage that is dealt to nearby enemies when you end this effect. This card costs 4 vitality and 4 agility. So this is quite a complicated one, but to pretty much summarize it, that if you are stationary for 2 seconds, you enter the shadow plane. When you are in the shadow plane, which I presume means if you stay stationary, you stay in the shadow plane or not, I don't really know how that works, but every second you are in the shadow plane, you build up ability damage, and when you end this effect of coming out of the shadow plane, you deal all that damage to nearby enemies. So what I'm thinking about this card is that I think you stay stationary for 2 seconds and then you enter the shadow plane for probably a set period of time if you want. Then you can move around as freely as you want in the shadow plane, and while in the shadow plane you build up extra ability damage within an area of effect. So this is going to be a really good stealthy high damage card. So say if you are Gideon, you use this card, you get into the shadow plane, get behind the enemy team, and while you're doing this you're building up ability damage, and then suddenly you use your ultimate and you're dealing a hell lot more damage than you would before. I think this card's going to be really, really cool in heroes like that, and Aurora, man, it's going to be really cool. I cannot wait to see this card in action. And then we have Cryo Agent, which gives you mana and power with the effect Ice Burst, which sounds really cool. After using an ability, your next basic attack will do 76 ability damage in an area and slow the move speed of targets hit by 92 for 0.9 seconds. This card costs 5 agility and 3 intellects. So again, if you're using abilities a lot, has a low cooldown, anything like that, this card could be really nice. I mean, maybe someone like a Sebrog, for example. Sebrog's Siphon ability has a really low cooldown, really easy to do. Get into someone's face, quickly use a Siphon, then a basic attack will do extra ability damage and provide a slow for them. So that's quite a nice card, mostly maybe even for basic attack heroes. But it's going to be an interesting card to see what heroes this really fits, but definitely a really good card. Really like this effect initially. Then we have Stasis Rune, which is pretty much Status Gem 2.0, gives you mana power, status yourself for 2.5 seconds, decent cooldown, and has a very high mana cost. It costs 6 intellect and 2 vitality. Nothing really else to say with it. You are status gems for exactly the same period of time, 2.5 seconds, as you would be now. It seems to be quite a bit more expensive card with a mana cost, but also comes with mana and power. Nice card to have, and I'm sure will be as beneficial as before, but a bit more costly to have. Then we have Echelon Soldier, which gives you mana, power, and the ability Powerful Spells. Ability damage is increased by 6.1% and costs 8 intellect. So if you're going full on hard ability damage with mana, this is basically a card of you, very simple, just ability damage increased, so purely ability damage. Not much else to say with this. I think it'd be a nice card. I don't really know how it would fit with certain heroes, and you would have to work out the maths, but yep, I mean, not much else to say about that one there. And then we have Sleeper Agent, which I'm a personal favourite of mine again. I'm very much liking the knowledge card so far. That gives you power, mana, and gag order as the effect. Silent target enemy for 2.3 seconds. The target takes 7.3% increased damage. Has a cooldown and a mana cost, and costs a whole 10 intellect. So we're definitely getting to the very late game cards now. Honestly, this card is pretty much, I mean, I guess more of a supported card if you want to purely silence enemies, but maybe even casters wouldn't be that bad. If you want to be more of a utility caster, really anyone like that could be a good card for. So pretty much this is going to be for enemy heroes that get themselves in high risky spots which you can silence very quickly, and your team can wipe off the map before they can do any more damage. Another one would be really cool is against high mobility heroes like say an Aurora. Aurora's quickly come into a battle, used her ultimate, and then she wants to escape the battle before she dies. You could silence her so she couldn't use any of her abilities, and then you could kill her off. Same with Wukong. If Wukong split pushing a lane, you can quickly silence the hero so he has no mobility and he can't escape, and hopefully that means your team can kill him off for trying to push the lane. A few examples there how this card could be beneficial on top of my head. Then we have Black Ice Routine. Gives you mana, health, power, and the effect Ice Blast. Deal a certain amount of ability damage to nearby enemies and apply a 250 move speed slow for 1.8 seconds. Has a cooldown and mana cost, quite a bit of ability damage there, and it costs 4 intellect and 8 vitality. This is pretty much a Shockwave. Shockwave right now isn't used that much, but I think it's a really good card, and I would expect exactly the same with this card here. That's a big move slow and a big amount of ability damage. Again, with those AoE ultimates, if you could drop someone right in the middle of a gadget ultimate, use this card, it can be twice as effective as it would before if you place it correctly. I can definitely see some really deadly combinations with Gideon's ultimate right now. I mean, oh boy, with this card and a few others, you can do some insane damage, I reckon. And then we're on to the final 3 cards, being O.P.D Militia, giving you mana, power, and attack speed, and the effect Enchanted Strikes. Basic attacks cost 25 mana and deal an additional 74 ability damage. It seems this ability isn't a trigger one, so the second you have this card, every single basic attack costs extra mana. It costs 4 intellect and 8 agility. It's probably the card that if you're going to be using basic attacks quite a lot as part of your kit. Wraith is a perfect example. Right now most people build a bit of attack speed on Wraith because even though he has his abilities, that his basic attacks are part of his damaging kit. So adding extra mana cost onto that for an additional 74 ability damage with extra basic damage could be really good. Probably a card if you're going to build a lot of mana into your build as well, so that's something to be very wary about, that this will cost significant mana cost. Then we have Corrosive Walker, having a damn lot of health and quite a significant amount of power as well, with the effect Enfeebling Shout. Reduce ability armor of nearby heroes by 18.4 for 3.7 seconds, has quite a low cooldown but a high mana cost. It costs 8 intellect and 4 vitality. It's pretty much a card that maybe for support if you want to lower the ability armor for your casters to a significant amount of damage, or just for a pure caster if you know you can do insane amount of damage, you just quickly want to activate this card and absolute wreak havoc on the enemy team. Again, with most of these cards, it's if you're going for a heavy caster composition, where maybe you have a caster off lane and in the mid lane, then this card can definitely, and many cards in the Knowledge Affinity, can really be beneficial not just to you, but also other casters on your team. And then finally, we have the last card called Echodrive, with a hell lot of power and mana. And also has the effect ability Mimic. Remove the cooldown of the last ability you cast. This card has 2.6 times the cooldown of the ability that is reset, and has a damn big mana cost of 250 and costs a whole 13 intellect to get, so definitely a very late card there. When it says remove the cooldown of the last ability, I believe it doesn't mean ultimate. I believe it just means abilities, not ultimates. It may mean ultimates as well, because I guess, you know, it has a 2.6 times the cooldown. So if you use an ultimate that has like an 80-second cooldown, and then you use it again with this card, then it's going to have a crazy amount of cooldown, like a 200-second cooldown. So I guess it's a very high risk, high reward card. If you think your ultimate's going to be really effective, then you can use this card to use that ultimate twice or an ability twice, and then hopefully you've used it correctly to be worth it, because not it's going to have a significant cooldown or stuff like that. But there's so many possibilities with so many heroes with this card that I definitely cannot wait to see what people come up with. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Knowledge Affinity. I personally think it's probably one of my more favourite affinities at the moment. Definitely something for casters, or if you are, again, a very heavy caster composition, to not just help you as a caster, but also help your allied casters. So definitely has some support casts there. I do like the consumables overall. I think they're pretty interesting and could be very strong. It doesn't have very early game cards. I think Font of Experience is going to be a really good card. I think that's something most supports will pick up. But apart from that, I think it has some really cool effects like Gag Order and stuff like, where is it? Hide. I think Hide is going to be really good. And you've got Ice Burst, Status. It has a lot of really good mid to end game cards. It's going to be really hard to choose. But I think with the knowledge, I think casters are going to have a really good time. But that about does it for this video, guys. Like I said, I'll be doing the other 3 affinities. And once patch 42 is out, I will be covering absolutely everything. So if you've watched it to the end of this video, put a smiley face down below so I actually know you have watched to the end of this video, because you guys are seriously awesome for watching my content and fully supporting me. And do let me know, like at the start, what you think of this affinity. Do you like it? Do you not like it? What cards do you think are going to be beneficial to you? And thank you all very much for watching. Do subscribe and share my content around. Very much appreciated. And I'll see you all next time.